Welcome once again to your update from the City of New Hope, and this is a very special edition as we start off 2022. And for this edition, as always, joined by the Mayor, Kathi Hemken. Mayor, how are you today?
Hi, Dave. Happy 2022.
Yes, to you as well. And we thought we would take a moment here as we start the new year to take a look back at last year and some of the accomplishments in the city. And as you can see by the notes, there's pages full of accomplishments in the city. So we're going to go department by department to give you a little idea of some of the great work done in the city. And let's begin, Mayor, with community development. And let's talk about some of the things that happened there. First of all, again, for the residents' sake, what is community development? And again, what are some of the highlights?
So the Community Development Department handles all of the new businesses that are coming in to make sure that they're abiding by our codes and our standards. And they also just try to get out into the community when there's a problem out there and they're trying to fix it. So that's what they do. With the new development and all the renovations they've been doing, we've added $28 million this last year to the tax base. I think that's just amazing. You know, these guys are doing their normal work of inspections and going out and doing in-home inspections and point of sale inspections. But beyond that, they're doing all this other stuff. And of course, they get a lot of help from the Planning Commission, which we couldn't do the job without those volunteers.
Sure.
Anyway, the 28 million is kind of a nice big number. A lot of that came from Windsor Ridge. That's the development over by the railroad tracks. 27 houses were sold for an average of $423 a piece. And that was land that the city owned. So it was tax exempt. We're getting no taxes on that land. And now there's going to be 32 houses on there, right around the 400,000 mark. The other 5 in the project are built and sold. They just haven't closed yet. So we haven't included that number in our 28 million.
And next is New Hope Church, some work done there. This is on the extended campus building. Tell us about that.
Well, a lot of our projects, even though we, the city, is not directly involved, we add that to our whole tax base because they're adding to that. So New Hope Church, the one on 38th and Boone, just their extended campus now became a charter school for Spanish immersion. So that's kind of exciting. There's some building improvements that have gone on at Cooper High School, 5.7 million. Again, pretty exciting. Pocket Square Lounge and Distillery is new. Hembernick's, the flooring company, is new. The expansion on the 42nd, Pub 42, that expansion of their patio, that actually went through the Planning Commission. And to get that, we had to change our codes a little bit, not just for them, but for everybody. We really wanted to keep people in business when we could. So we were doing everything we could to help keep them in business.
And a couple other business notes and an organizational note. Hy-Vee, we've talked about the aisles event going on there and some of that work, and also New Hope Church as well inside doing some remodeling on their gym.
They did. You know, all that stuff comes through the Community Development Department to make sure that they're sticking to the codes and making sure that what they're going to do is right. And so all that comes through our department. And when you look at the list of the things they've been doing, it's impressive. The other thing that Community Development has been doing, they've been coordinating with the police department, because sometimes when you get a police call, they go out and it's really, you know, it's garbage cans are left out. There's a mess in the yard. So they're going out with the police department and trying to solve some of those community problems too. So it doesn't add anything to the community. It just stabilizes the community and makes it look better.
We've talked a lot about scattered site housing over the year. Give us an idea of how important that is for what community development does.
Well, we've done 7 projects where we've bought the house, tore it down, rebuilt. 2 new houses on one of the lots we built. All of those houses have sold. We did a Habitat for Humanity house. We didn't put a lot of money into that one. Mostly it was Habitat. We gave them some money from our CDGB money to do that. But every time we take one of those older houses and put a nice new house there, it really does add to our tax base.
Something else that residents might see as they travel around the city are signs that says a Green Step City. And I understand this is the work of community development as well. Tell us about that.
Well, there's a program in the state. There's 133 cities that are in this program. And what they're trying to do is make sure their cities are sustainable and ecologically sound. And so there's a bunch of best practices. Actually, New Hope ranks 4th in the 133 cities that are in this program. So we're really impressed with that. We're at a step 3. It takes a lot of paperwork and a lot of time to do that, but it also takes some amount of ingenuity. And so we're really proud of what they're doing.
Congratulations, New Hope, on that. A few other notes from Community Development Business Networking Group that we always talk about is under the umbrella of Community Development, also the Rave Awards, and also the Food Truck Friday, which people got out and enjoyed. That is something that came up from these fine folks in community development. So a lot of great work in that area.
Yeah, there was a lot of innovative thinking too.
All right, let's move over to Public Works. This is a very busy group, as we talk about all the time, keeping the city up and running with streets and everything underneath them. Give us a little highlight reel of some of the work in Public Works.
Well, they are number one when it comes to plowing snow. We get our streets plowed really quickly. These guys get up in the middle of the night to do this. So thank you guys for doing that. Besides that, they're working on doing the phase 1 of their redevelopment at the Public Works building. And even though that's being contracted out, there's a lot of stuff that the Public Works guys have to do, like move the stuff. They're painting the walls. They're doing just some general housekeeping that is in there. They are doing some sewer pipe lining to reduce the inflow and infiltration. What that is in the sewer pipes, if groundwater seeps into the sewer pipes, we get charged for the amount of sewage that we dispose of through the city. And if that water is inflowing in there, it costs us more money. And so instead of just replacing the pipe by digging up the streets, they line it. So whenever they have some time, they're going around the city and relining those pipes. They're also working on their 10-year pavement management plan.
Mm-hmm.
So they look at that and they can tell when the street's going to be paved over or just crack seal and seal coated. So our pavement rating has gone up from 76% to 80%, where people say it's either good or excellent. So we're making some really good improvements.
Well, one of the things that's interesting to me is that there's a lot of infrastructure for the city in the parks. And this group, Public Works, spends a lot of times in the parks on things like parking lots and some of those. Tell us about that work, which is really a neat partnership between departments.
Well, the parking lots have to be kept up too, as well as the park equipment. So they replaced the park equipment on 2 of our parks. We got a grant from Hennepin County to help with one of them. But then along with that, in Hidden Valley Park and Lions Park, they redid the parking lots of those. So not only are they trimming trees and cutting grass, they're fixing the parking lots and they're trying to upgrade it as much as they can.
A couple other areas that they work with that really were noted in the past year or 2 or 3 would be the emerald ash borer and water restrictions. Tell us again about the great work of this department in those 2 areas.
Well, in those, you have to coordinate with other departments. For the water restrictions, we had to go through the DNR, the city of Minneapolis, and the joint water powers agreement with people, so that we were doing what everybody else is doing. We buy our water from Minneapolis, and that's why we had to go through them. But it takes a lot of coordination to do all that so that we're all doing the same thing and we're doing it correctly. The emerald ash borer, of course, it has come to New Hope, and they're cutting down boulevard trees and trees in the park and replacing them with trees that aren't ash trees. We got a loan or a grant from Hennepin County to do some of that, and that helps. But a lot of that money is coming out of the city too. They have to come down because they're going to die and they're going to fall, and we don't want it to hurt somebody. So they're busy cutting down trees and doing what they can to get rid of the emerald ash and the buckthorn.
So hats off to Public Works for the great work in 2021. Let's move ahead to Parks and Recreation, and the highlight has to be the swimming pool and the aquatic center. Give us a little review of that great accomplishment.
Before I tell you about that, I want to just back up a little bit to the railroad crossing on Boone and Winnetka.
Right.
That has been just a pain to us for the last 5 or 6 years. So the Public Works Department has been working with Canadian Pacific for, I would say, 5 years to get them to fix that. Finally, this year, that's been fixed. So that's really exciting that part is done. Now, the next exciting part is the Park and Rec. So, we built the pool, couldn't open it because of COVID. This in 2021, we were able to open, but we were short lifeguards. So they were trying to reschedule and do all the stuff they have to do with that to stay open. We had 47,000 attendees to the new pool. The average for the old pool was about 19,000 a year. So that was a really big deal to get that open, keep that running. when we're trying to deal with the shortage of lifeguards that we had. So that was a real big deal. They're also getting kind of creative over there at Park and Rec. One of the things they did during the pandemic was having take-home kits. So you could go and purchase a science kit, a game kit, or a craft kit, take it home, and it had all the stuff you needed to do the project in it, and then you just get to keep it. They also had Park and Rec equipment that you could rent. It cost $15 to rent it for 2 weeks, and it was snowshoes and skis and things you could do outside. Anything that we could do to get kids out in those parks was a good thing. So of course, our whole Civic Center park opened up, and that includes our Performance Center. So not only did the off-Broadway guys come back to do their performance, but this year we also did movies in the park and entertainment in the park, and those things were free. And that's always a fun thing. We've always wanted to do that, but after they tore down the old theater, obviously we didn't have a place to do that, but now we have a place. So the Park and Rec is getting really creative on what they're doing.
They are amazing. Let's hop around to a couple other parks that saw some work this year. You mentioned in cooperation with Public Works to get it in there, Corner Park and Little Acre Park, some new equipment there during the past year.
Well, we did get new equipment there, and it sounds like an easy process, but it takes a lot of time because we want to have the neighbors chime in on what they want. And so we have 2 meetings with the neighbors. One of them is to tell us about the age of the kids that are there around the park and what they might be interested in. Then we have Landscapes Incorporated come in and show us a couple of things we can do with the amount of money we're going to spend. And then the neighbors come back and they pick out what they want and the color that they want. And then we actually go around to doing that. And a lot of the work Public Works does, like putting in the base for that, putting in the retaining walls when we need that. So Public Works will do a lot of that work just so we can spend more money on the actual park equipment itself. But it takes a lot of time and effort to do those parks.
Let's hop over to a couple Park and Rec facilities that we talk about throughout the year on our updates. One is the ice arena, and folks spend a lot of time looking up to the roof of that ice arena to get the roof fixed and the skylights fixed, correct?
Well, if you remember, the skylights were kind of curved, and when it snows, the snow would fall off on people's heads. Well, that's not a real good idea. So those skylights have been in there since it was built. So they needed to be replaced. And as long as we were doing that, we could get a better deal on doing the rooftop too. So those 2 things were done. Even though we contracted out, we still have to look at the plans and the specs of what they're doing and make sure that that's really what we need. And it just takes a lot of time, and that the Park and Rec department was busy doing that. The golf course had the best financial year they've ever had. $473,000 they took it. They played, I want to get this number right. I got to find it first. Rounds of golf. I bet you have it.
I do have it here. I think it's 27,531.
That's it.
That's a good number.
That's a very good number. That's not the biggest number we've had. We had a bigger number in 95. But that's a pretty good number. A lot of that income, however, came from Ironwood parking. The parking at Ironwood Apartments isn't adequate. And so they were using the golf course parking lot and renting that from us. $50 a month per car with nice income to bring in. So that brings a nice amount of income to our golf course. So we could do some things that we might not have been able to do without that.
Well, congratulations to Park and Recreation for all the great work in 2021. Let's move ahead to the police department. A lot of activity here and a lot of new thinking happening in the police department. Give us a recap of some of their efforts in this past year.
Oh, they've been they're always marvelous, but really marvelous this year. First of all, we lost one of our captains. He retired. So there was a promotion from sergeant to captain. And of course, that meant there was an internal promotion from officer to sergeant. We've hired 7 new police officers, not additional, but because of health reasons. Some of them left, some of them retired, some of them moved to other places. So that helped diversify our police department by doing that. The police have been really good working with community development and with Park and Rec to go out to the parks and have things like winter roasts in the park. That the police will show up and they just invite the neighbors over just so they can have some community interaction with them. They've also put in there's something called tip 411, so that you can call in a tip if you see something that doesn't look right. You can call that into the police department without giving your information. It doesn't go anywhere but to the police department. So if you don't want to call and say, oh, there's something going on, you can go to the 411 tip line.
Right.
They also got body cameras this year.
Right.
And that was a real big deal. You don't just clip it on your uniform and let it go. We had to do a trial to make sure they were working right. We had to show all the officers how to use them, what was required of them in the use of them. Those body cams not only help the officers, they help the people that they're confronting too. So it's really good to have that. Really difficult to do that. The other thing they did is they started looking at leasing police cars rather than buying them. It seems to be a cost savings to do that. We'll see how that works. They're going to lease just a few to start with. And like anything we do in the police department, they do a little trial to see how it's working. If it's working okay, then they expand it a little bit more. So they've been really busy with a lot of community development stuff.
Couple other notes, they obviously keep track of a lot of things that happen in the city, and they have reports of response time being decreased for the police department, and also decreases in part 1 and part 2 crime. So something the city has to be very pleased with.
Oh, we are. The police are getting to the incident quicker. And when they can't, however, we use other cities to respond, and we in turn respond to those other cities. If you remember, just earlier this year, 3 of our police officers from New Hope were given a commendation by the police chief from Crystal,
right?
Because Crystal was busy. Our police went to the incident, and they were giving accommodations to these 3 police officers, which I think speaks highly of both our police department and Crystal's.
And again, the police department very involved in many events in the community, including Meals on Wheels, which you've talked about, also about the bike rodeo, something that they partner in, and the safety camp as well. Some things, again, in the past year that police was heavily involved with. Let's move over to West Metro Fire Rescue District. Give us an update on that cooperative agreement between the 2 cities.
That fire department is with Crystal and New Hope. And what they did this year, and I thought this was ingenious, and they had something called a duty crew. And the idea was to have 4 firefighters there for 12 hours and then a different set of 4 to come in for another 12 hours. And they did that so that in the event that COVID happened to, somebody picked up COVID in one of the 4, it wouldn't shut our whole fire department down.
Sure.
So they were very careful just to keep everything compartmentalized so that we could make sure that we could respond when needed. Well, we did get some money from the American Rescue Plan to cover some of that. But that takes a lot of coordination to be able to do that. We also use the paid on call fire department like we've always done. But that was just something they tried to do, and it worked really well. They're also looking into leasing 4 of our fire engines.
Okay.
It's time to replace them. You know, you certainly don't want to have a failure when you need to take it out on the fire. So you're very careful keeping them maintained. So they're looking at leasing 4 of them to see how that works. Again, try it, see how it works, make sure it is in fact a cost savings before they expand it on.
And West Metro as well, very big into education and fire protection. So a lot of events throughout the year and opportunities for them to encourage and educate the youngest to the oldest in the fine city of New Hope. Let's move ahead to the finance department. If you like numbers, here's the place for you. And these folks keep track of the numbers in a very efficient way, Mayor.
Well, we use AEM, which is Abdo Wyke and Myers, and it's a firm, an outside firm. We also have a finance department that's internal, that's doing incoming bills and outgoing bills that they pay. So they're doing all that and the payroll. AEM is just kind of overlooking that. We received got to get the right title for this. We received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Again, we've gotten that ever since we hired AEM to do that. Our financial reports are on time and they look really good. AEM helps put our budget together, and that helps. We had a clean audit, which means they come in and they look at everything, make sure we're doing everything properly. We didn't have any ticks that we had to change this year. So a nice clean audit. They tell us that the city's in very good financial position. The city manages to keep a 50% reserve. The reason we do that is we don't get our tax, when we collect our taxes, we don't get that until July. We
Right.
have to have enough money in reserve to go from December to July till we get that first payment. And we managed to keep a reserve of 50%, and I think that's pretty great to do that. And that's through the help of AEM. The other thing we did is we had some energy bonds with the ice arena. Well, we refinanced those, saving $150,000 over the next 7 years because the interest rate was lower. So we were able to refinance those energy bonds. Again, more savings, and that all sounds easy when you're just saying it,
Right.
but when you're doing all the work that goes into that. And of course, AEM helped us with all the money that we got from the government. When you get that money from the American Rescue Plan, you have to be very careful to document where you're spending it. You can't just put it into the general fund. We have to document where you needed it and where you spent it. So all the stuff that we had to do for COVID-19 that we probably wouldn't have had to do before that, we used the money for that.
And also a note from finance, they were working behind the scenes with some of the extra proceeds from police station city hall project that went towards the public works project. So again, helping out in all areas of the city. Speaking of helping out, here's some people behind the scenes that help out. The IT services department. Tell us about these fine folks and some of their accomplishments last year.
Well, we hired solution builders a few years ago because it was becoming obvious that one person wasn't going to be able to handle our IT situations. So the police, of course, is our biggest IT user. And now with the body cams, they had to make sure that there was enough storage for all of that filming. We've also put in Zoom, like you and I are doing, but at City Hall, we put that into the council chambers and one additional conference room so that we could do Zoom calls when we needed to. Again, that takes a lot of extra time and effort on their part. Not to mention that they're always trying to keep all of our computers up and running and doing all that other stuff. So it's really a team effort.
Certainly is. And another team effort is communications, working with all departments in the city to keep residents informed. Give us some of the highlights from communications during this past year.
Well, our communications person, it's one person, is just everywhere. She's taking pictures, she's sending things to you, she's sending things to me. She's the one that said, maybe we ought to get rid of the pipeline and just increase the population or the number of times we're doing in touch, because in the pipeline only went to people that were getting a water bill.
Right.
And that left out all the people who were paying online and all the people in apartments. So it was her idea to do that. She's increased our social media by 21%. She's increased our Facebook things that people look at by 18%. So she's doing all this stuff behind the scenes. And the whole idea is to get people to see the city and to help them. She's also helped put in something called Ready 311 that you can go online and report a pothole or a stop sign that's down or a tree branch that's down. Not necessarily a police item, but just something. You don't want to make that phone call because you don't know who you're going to talk to. Ready 311 will just let you report that and it'll get to the right department through her.
And communications as well, helping on some of the fun things in the city, bringing back the New Hope City Day and also working with the photo contest and having that fun as well. Finally, let's talk just some general ideas and items related to staff. What were some of the staff numbers and changes that happened in the city during 2021?
Well, first of all, we have probably the greatest city manager around, and everybody works for him. It's kind of a standard joke. They all work for him and he works for me or for the council. Right. But they've been really, really busy. We hired 15 new employees this year. When you hire, of course, not only do you post and then you have to interview and then you have to train and all this other stuff that goes with it. So he and the department have been busy doing all that stuff. The employees, it isn't that people are leaving. They're not quitting. They're going somewhere else or they're retiring. So it's all stuff that's going on. He tries real hard to promote from within. So we post the job and we have to have 2 certified people applying for that job to take an internal employee to do that. And so that takes a little bit of time, a lot of time. So we always try to promote from within. We're always doing some promotions of people that are at jobs, and he's expanding their jobs. We think it's really important that everybody knows what everybody else is doing. So it's really open, but the idea if everybody can help everybody else, that when somebody's out for some reason, the other folks in the department or other departments can just step in and keep things going till that person gets back. So that all takes a lot of time and effort.
Certainly does. And the city services survey, we've talked about that. Always important for the city of New Hope to get a tab of what the residents are thinking. And again, good results this year.
Very good results. Well, every few years we do something with Morris Letterman. It's a professional survey they do. Well, through the pandemic, we didn't think that was a real good time to do that. So then we've been doing the city services survey. We ask people to go online or to send in the survey. How do you think we're doing? What can we do to improve? So that we went up to 82% of the people said we were doing good or excellent. We really want to get it to 100, but that's going to be a little hard. But we do read every single one of those. We read all the comments. They go to the appropriate department that they concern the problem with, and they fix that. So it just, again, takes time.
And again, a couple other fun things happening within the staff. The work with the farmers market continues on, and also the annual bus tour to showcase city projects. So again, you have a little fun as well from the staff level. We do this bus tour because it's for all of our commissioners. All of our commissions are volunteers. And so you can't really do a lot for them, but we have this bus tour, and then we tour the city, and then we go to the golf course and have a lunch, and then we do a couple more things. A lot of them say, oh, I didn't know that was happening, or I didn't know where that was. So it's really kind of a fun thing to do. And as we're doing this tour, they all have a book, and they're looking at the pictures in the book and a little verbiage on what we did and where and how and all that stuff. So staff is really busy. That usually comes out of the community development department, but it's staff that's driving it too. And just a final note is that the city is not on an island by itself. There's a lot of relations that have to be made with other cities, with the school districts, with the legislators. Tell us how that process worked and who were the people behind that in the past year. Well,
the council and me, along with Kirk, we all try we all talk to all the mayors around us, so we know what's going on. Our city managers get together and talk to each other from the different cities. There's something called the North Metro Mayors that we go to these meetings every month just to see what's going on in other cities further away, like Fridley, Blaine, Champlin, this North Metro kind of mayors. And of course, we always keep an open verbiage with all our legislators, because we need to know what they're doing and they need to know what we're doing. So a couple of them have listening sessions that we go to, and these are usually on a Saturday for an hour at Frankie's Pizza. So just listening to what's going on and what people have concerned. The more we know about what's going on, the better we can serve you.
Well, we could have gone on for hours here to recap some of the things in the last year in the city of New Hope, but how's that? A half hour for you of a look back at some of the things and really 9 key departments within the city. So again, Mayor, a wonderful 2021, and now the city all focused on 2022.
We are, and a big thank you to our staff. This city has an amazing staff, and I'm really appreciative of them, and they're appreciative of each other too. So I thank them.
Mayor, thanks once again for your time today for this special update from the city of New Hope. And next time, back to normal, we'll talk about some of the things that are going on currently in the city and keep you up to date and in touch with the city of New Hope. Mayor Hemken, thanks again for your time. We'll look forward to see you again next week.
Thanks, Dave. See ya.
Learn more about The Connection at ccxmedia.org and follow us on social media.